Hello everyone. So, as Desim McAdams said, open source is not just about code, it's about community. Hello and welcome to IEEE-BPIT's live webinar on open source and development. Today, we have a special guest, Diganta Kr, Banik, a DevRel and GSOC 23 mentor for Keploy, a former HD intern at CuriousJr, and an open source enthusiast. We are excited to have him with us today to share his insights and experience upon open source development. Now, I would like to invite my esteemed colleague to share their insights on this topic. Over to Himanshu.
Open source development is becoming increasingly popular and essential in the tech industry. It enables developers to access an extensive repertoire of resources and tools to collaboratively craft sophisticated software, which is why it has become imperative for all those who aspire to master the art of programming. In this webinar, we will discuss the latest trends and opportunities in open source development, how to discover and overcome the challenges in open source projects, the resources and tools to get started with open source development, and the opportunities to network with fellow open source enthusiasts.
In this webinar, we are privileged to have Mr. Diganta Kr Panik, a DevRel and GSOC 23 mentor for Keploy, a former SD intern at CuriousJr, and an open source enthusiast. With his extensive experience in field of open source development, he will elucidate upon the latest trends and opportunities in the open source development, the key challenges that one may encounter while working on open source projects, and apprise the audience of the gamut of resources and tools that are available to kickstart their open source journey. Without any further ado, let's welcome our guest, Diganta Kr Panik, to shed light on the nuances of open source development and enrich enrich the knowledge and proficiency in his field. Over to Diganta.
Yes.
Is it visible, right?
Yes.
The presentation. Yeah.
Yes.
Alright. Yeah. So first of all, I'd like to thank Nakul and the entire team at BT for inviting me to speak on development and open source. And I guess I hope at the end of this day we probably learn something and at least be motivated to contribute more towards open source and look at what you're developing in development. So let's start with. So hello everyone. So I'm Diganta. I'm currently a GSOC mentor and a developer relations intern for Keploy. I'm also a core team member at Hack for Bengal, which is Eastern India's largest hackathon. And along with that, I'm still a fourth-year student at Macau, West Bengal. That's just a bit about me. I guess I can directly get started with today's agenda. So, I'll first start a bit with what exactly development is and how you can aid your development journey, what you do in development with open source. So one question that I've got asked a lot, or I've seen on the internet as well, is which tech stack to start with, or how to get into development, or what exactly path should I follow for development. So first of all, as per my journey, as per my experience, I would say it does not depend on what tech stack you choose, because there are a lot of tech stacks out there. There's a lot of technologies out there that you can try it out. For example, apart from the tradition, you have mobile app development, you have web development, you have machine learning, data analytics, and all these. Along with that, I would also suggest, if you want, you can check out things like cybersecurity, which exactly isn't under development, but it's a part of tech, and you can still get into open source with cybersecurity. You have things like IoT, database administration, blockchain, and all these stuff. So when you're doing development, it's not exactly, or say you want to get into open source with development, you'll probably never learn it, or you'll not be able to do it if you just concentrate on developing just simple projects or learning from tutorials and stuff like that. Or say you want to master web development, just development in general. You get to see a lot of videos, articles, master web development. Let's say web development. So master web development in 2 or 3, let's say, months, or in 15 days, 20 days. Just believe me, development is not something you can master or you can learn as such. When you're developing, you always need to you always need to tackle problems. The thing about development is not learning the tech stack or not learning every tool or stuff like that. It's about tackling problems when they come by. It's actually understand the entire tech ecosystem. Even when you'll be doing internships, let's say, when you'll be doing jobs, that will be your main problem. It will not just be learning frameworks, because things like these always get updated. If you see around, or if you ask people on the internet as well, or ask anyone, you probably will never hear anyone suggesting you books for development. The thing about development is it's actually as volatile and as versatile as tech itself is, because it keeps getting updated. So you always have to keep yourself updated, and you probably won't find courses or one-shot guide towards development. You always should know how to read docs, how to search questions on the internet. Given the fact that we now have things like ChatGPT, GPT-4, and all these stuff, it becomes easier for us. So you can use them and try to develop that habit of not just completing courses, or not just completing one project, but tackling the problems as you go by. And one more thing is, just don't stick to one tech stack. Try to learn a bit of everything. This will help you in your development journey as well as when you contribute to open source. I'll just give an example later. So always don't relate that if I am into development, I'll be just learning one tech stack or learning one technology and that is it. That will never help you. You need to get idea of a lot of things, to be known as a developer. As I'll say, it's never be the jack of, always be the jack of some, or not, even if not all, at least some trades, and try to be at least master of one. Or the question mark here says, you don't have to, by the word master, I don't exactly mean that you will be able to, let's say, you will be able to get everything, just out in a jiffy when someone asks you. Let's say if I am into web development, let's say you must have, I guess, if you have heard about React, which is one of the hottest frameworks around in web at this time. Now, if someone says that he or she is a master of React, they would be lying. It's not possible, because if you go and see the code base of React, you would see there are, I guess, millions of lines of code. No one knows exactly what function does what. But the thing is, if someone is a developer, if someone is a good developer, if someone is doing good in open source, they will know how to tackle problems. If they get an error, they'll be able to search it on the internet, and they'll try to come up with some sort of answer. Now, searching on the internet, again, they will also have, it can also be like asking questions on Stack Overflow as well. So try to be, when you're starting into development, as this will help you in open source, always try to have an idea of a bit of everything, so that you can tackle problems. Get that habit of tackling problems by searching on internet. Get the habit of reading docs. So that is the prime importance of development. And now let's see, how open source how you'll fit all of these into open source. I'm not going to detail on what different type of tech stacks are there that you can learn. That you'll get on the internet any day. The biggest thing is, remember that try to always learn and try to always tackle these problems that you get, and be confident that I can tackle problems. That is the most important aspect of a developer. And now let's get started with open source, and not just open source, tracking your dev journey with GitHub. So GitHub, whenever you hear GitHub or GitLab, Gitbucket, don't always correlate them to being a part of open source. You obviously can, they are important for, they are the prime aspects of open source, but always try to track whatever you're doing, every project you make, everything that you do. On choice, GitHub being the most popular. So, because these will give an impression to recruiters out there, because I understand, even as a student, I know at the end of the day, our prime goal is to get a job. So these things, so when you track your dev journey, whether you make, a simple project, push everything to GitHub so that people can see what work you have done. And even when you're starting out, this will keep motivating you when you see those green squares. And then slowly you can go from making your own personal projects towards contributing to open source. So now, so this is how exactly you get started, because you directly can't enter open source. You need to have some prerequisites, and given the fact that we are engineering students, I think we would love start with getting into the coding part of open source. So now the first question that you would get is, why open source though? I guess, at the very beginning we had answered this, but I once again say, why not open source? Because open source is probably the best platform to test your skills. as an engineering student, let's get all started when you are first year. We hear, things like data structure algorithms.
Junior
Like anyone has any questions?
No. The session, the Q&A session will be held afterwards. Please continue.
Yeah, sure. So, what I was saying is, when you're in your first year, you obviously hear things like data structure algorithms. So, when we start data structure algorithms, we try to, go ahead, go and try to explore various platforms that support these. Some go into competitive programming and try to, take it up a notch. You can think something of similar type in open source. Open source is nothing but project development, or development of softwares via making it the source open so that everyone can give their own contributions. So from this you can say the biggest importance when you document your journey through open source, or when you try to contribute to open source, is you learn collaboration, and you'll be able to learn and apply them, not just in your personal projects, during interviews, in your jobs as well. So when you contribute to, when you start off with open source, when you select, let's say you select a project and you want to contribute to it, let's say we'll just start with a basic code contribution. Let's say there is an error coming and I just want to, and due to one single line, and I remove that line. Now, when you are removing that line and when you made a PR, you'll see a lot of people will, give you suggestions to do it a bit differently, maybe keeping that line, or the error may have been generated to something else as well. They'll guide you. So you'll be able to collaborate through the entire journey. And that will help you learn a lot about the tech that you are working in, the language, or the programming language, the framework that you're working in, and it will help you innovate stuff. You'll be able to use that knowledge. It's just like playing a sports match. People will give you advice, after your performance, and then you'll be able to use that advice and use it later. So that is the biggest importance of open source. And I'll loop back to this question once more after we have done the session, so that at least we can understand what we learned and why should we be motivated to open source. Now, when you open up the aspects of open source, you obviously will see, if you're in GitHub, you'll see things like commits, pull request issues, and code reviews. Now, the most easiest thing out of these is the commits one. Whenever you make any, you make any changes to your project and you push that code, you usually make a commit. Apart from these, now pull request issues and code reviews. I'm not going to the basics. I hope everyone has an idea. Just skimming through it. So pull request is nothing but when you want to make a change, you have made the change, and you sort of give that draft copy of the change to the maintainer of the project, so that the maintainers can check whether the change that you have done is viable for the project or not. I think issues is something that is very underrated. It may happen that you're using an open source tool, you may be using any product, and you probably that may not be related directly to what tech stack you're working. It's let's say you're using some external plugin. It's written in some other language, and the language, let's say you are currently working in JavaScript. You use that plugin, but you see there's an issue with that plugin, but you probably cannot resolve that issue. So you can at least raise that issue, and that, and believe me, that is a massive. That is something very massive and very important for any open source project. Whenever you make such issues, people will get to know about that there's something not working, and that benefits the projects immensely. And then you have code reviews. Code reviews are nothing when you review someone else's code, and then mostly like as I said, where you can give your own your own suggestion to codes, whether the code is working, whether you have some idea or not. At the end of it, you can see this is all about collaboration in open source, because obviously the code is out for anyone, and anyone can contribute to that code. So now let's talk. Let's talk how I started. So hopefully, I can motivate every one of you as well. So back in 2021, when I was sort of like in my beginning of my it was the mid of my second year, I would say, the beginning to mid of my second year. What happened was, we were all in COVID lockdown. So, I was searching through projects and all that stuff on the internet. And then I made my first, there's a repository called First Contributions. You can go out there, and there's just a README file. You just give your name to that README file. And that, sort of basically starts your open source journey. You get to know about branches and, pull requests and all these stuff. Now, but again, at the end of the day, I think as engineers, we just don't want to make these small contributions, or let's say just small grammatical corrections in documentation. I think everyone must have heard, that start off with correcting grammar, correcting all these in documentations. That's how you get started in open source. The biggest thing is taking that one step up a notch. So then what I did was I got a program called Open Source Day. I guess it may happen this year as well. So you can participate in such programs where it's sort of just a one-day program, but you select a project and the maintainers there will be there throughout the day. And you can interact with them, how you can contribute, and you can make your first contribution that day. And it's not just small documentation correction or small error correction. You may be able to substantially add stuff to the code base that actually improves that software or improves that project. So that sort of boosts your confidence. So try to look out for such programs if you want. And then I participated in Hacktoberfest 2021, and there I remember it was my first Hacktoberfest, and I made just 4 pull requests. They required it to get the T-shirt. And then this year when I participated, I took it up from 4 pull requests to making it, I guess, about 20 to 24 pull requests in this year's Hacktoberfest. And during this journey, I had contributed a lot of open source projects, trying to understand how code bases work, how to contribute to huge code bases, trying to get the gist of what I have to work on any issue. And then after that, I participated as project admin. I have an open source project called Dino, which is a Chrome extension. I use that. I participated with that in Social Winter of Code. And after that, I also participated in IWOC, which was conducted by GSOC IET. So there also Dino participated, and that was my first taste of how it actually feels like to be a mentor of a project. So I hope, I guess most of your timelines would also be same like this. So you started out at very less, and then you slowly take it up a notch. And the more you start contributing to open source, the more you start contributing to projects with whatever knowledge you have, you get that bit of confidence to continue, and you will see the progress. You will see the progress in with time, that what you were, let's say 1 year ago, to what you were after 1 year of making continuous open source contributions. Now just making a first PR, as I said. One of the best things, if you're, because when you see code bases, you must have heard people, just, at times making false PRs and all these stuff. And you may be afraid, to make PRs, or what happens if you make a mistake and you change something that was not to be changed. So one thing you can do is, whenever you have a personal project, it's my take, and you're starting out into open source, or just for your project in GitHub, whenever you push, whenever you add code to your project in GitHub, whenever the subsequent time, whenever you make a change, don't directly commit. Try to make issues, and try to make pull requests to your own project. That will give you a confidence on how to exactly step into code bases, how to exactly contribute to open source. So that whenever you're making a pull request or an issue to a bigger project, you're not that scared anymore that what happens if I mess it up. Similarly, you can, and at the beginning, like everyone says, I would also say that, try out with the documentation issues. They're pretty simple, and they give you that taste of contributing to big open source organizations. Take out for labels, good first issue, and, try these other repositories may have big and labeled issues. Try to tackle those, try to ask people. And one important thing is, whenever you're making contributions to open source, always ask that, I want to try it out. And once you're assigned that issue, work on it. And you can check out, there's a very good website, learngetbranching.js.org. There you will be able to understand how branches and all these stuff work. And yeah, so that is how you exactly start into, making a first PR and all these stuff. But this, I think everyone knows, you get this recommendations on the internet as well. But now let's see how, let's see now you want to contribute to a project that is, let's say, used by thousands of, or, millions of people. Let's say a project that has 10,000 stars. Now, how do you exactly contribute to such projects? Now, first of all, remember that once you have made contributions to open source, you will get that idea yourself. You don't have to look to the entire code base. You can just sort of like take apart where the error is, try to talk with the code reviewer, like the maintainers, and then try to solve this. So you can be as a code contributor. You try to solve those errors, and always ask the maintainers there. They usually have Slack channels, Discord, that I'm facing this error, I want to correct this error. Can you give me suggestions? So as a code contributor. Now, apart from that, remember, you can also participate as a code reviewer for open source organizations as well. You don't have to necessarily be a maintainer. Suppose if someone has made a pull request and you see that there is some error in code, or you have a better idea, directly suggest them that. That also immensely helps, and that is something that the community looks forward to. And again, remember, as I said, every issue counts as well. If even for big issues you find, you get, it's like, you get an issue and you see that the issue is new to you or it has never been addressed. Go and open up a issue, go and open an issue for that project and tell that I'm having this error, I don't know how to resolve it, and that will also help. So remember, all these are the ways where you can contribute, and they were open source organizations, maintainers will appreciate it. And now, as I said at the very beginning, we were learning tech stack, but now how this open source is what will give you that edge over learning your tech stack. So it will help you innovate, it will help you learn from various big projects and how they function, like how the code bases look. You will learn about how to keep your repositories, the structure of your project. So whenever you so try to learn tech stacks, try to make a personal project, and then try to contribute to open source using the same tech stack. And believe me, you will learn a lot with that. So these are basically, this is just the basic gist of open source, what you can contribute and all these. But there's you can see I have made 2 columns for challenges. The right side is what concerns you. So, getting started with open source is a bit challenging. Finding your good projects is a bit challenging. And, as a suggestion, I would also say whenever you have programs like, Hacktoberfest, let's say GSOC as well, or any other type of projects, type of events, try to find good organizations from there. For example, if you're participating in Hacktoberfest, you'll always see there are some organizations that send swags as well, apart from the Hacktoberfest swag. Like they have their own personal swag if you contribute to their repositories. Now, it's not just for the incentive of swag, what I'm saying, but these organizations mean they value their open source contributors. Try to look for such. You will be able to find big projects via such lists, and you can contribute to them. And that will that you will be able to contribute to a big code base, repository with a big code base. Then collaborating can be a bit challenging in open source because you may find that some people are rude. Try to ignore such people because obviously other maintainers and other people will always come to help you. You may have impatience as well. It does happen. You open up an issue, you open up a pull request, and the maintainer does not get time to review it. So that is a bit of challenge. You feel that impatience. And then you have motivation as well at times, because open source directly may not have monetary benefits. So at that point, you may feel, open source, you may feel a bit demotivated to open source. But remember, all of this does help you at the end of the day. Now, as a challenge for open source organizations, you may have heard about sustaining an open source project, which is similar on the terms of funding. Open source organizations don't get funding, so that becomes a challenge to keep running big projects. You have security issues because the code is again open, so there may be security issues. You have governance, you have license issues, what sort of license a project has, all these hassles, and then you have to obviously maintain the community. So that is also a challenge. You have to maintain your community, as people won't come and contribute to your projects. Now, just on this line, I would say you can always check out. There's an interesting story on Faker.js. So this happened a while back, I guess in about the January of last year. So there's a repository, if you go out and check Faker.js. What happened was there was a maintainer who pushed one commit at the beginning of 2022, which sort of said, I think it said that it was the end of Faker.js or something. And what his take was that the open source organization was not getting funded properly, or bigger organizations were using their code but not funding them. And so he sort of tried to disrupt the organizations who were using Faker.js. But then again, more people came, more maintainers came, and what they did was they reverted back. And now, if you go and check, Faker.js is once again running. So just check this out, okay? Once Faker.js story of 2022. And so, what do we get learnings from all these challenges? Okay, number one is always appreciate any open source software that you're using. So if you're using personal projects, because if you're learning tech, if you're doing any sort of development, you probably will be using external libraries, most of which will be open source. So always appreciate them. And again, as I said, by appreciating, I would mean try to contribute to those open source softwares if you can. Issues, pull code contributions, documentation updates, anything. And then the demand for open source software will always be there. So don't worry about that. Doing open source would be a waste of time or something like that. You will always have that. always be able to, people will always be inclined towards open source software, and they'll always keep an eye out for people who are contributing to open source. And lastly, I would like to say, look out these programs. I think you must have heard Google Summer of Code. You have Outreach, Hacktoberfest, Google Season of Docs. These are the best programs that you can leverage to sort of use them and contribute during this period, because you get a lot of good organizations coming out. You have big companies as well with their open source projects coming out to so that you can contribute to. And also you have summer and winter of codes of various other organizations like say social girl script. You also have the various university and colleges conducting their own summer and winter of codes. Those I guess would be one of the best ways to start your open source journey. You probably don't have very big companies coming there, very big organizations coming there, but you'll be able to learn a lot. Similarly, if you're starting out as you want to get your own open source project out there, these are the best places. Apply for your project, to be showcased during these events like the like Social Winter of Code, Social Summer of Code. You have Girl Script, Summer of Code, and these by this you will be able to attract more contributors towards your own project. So try to look out for all these programs, try to contribute, and I think that would help you in your open source journey. So again, looping back to that question, so why would you be interested in open source? As you know, at the end of the day, you can at least understand that you learn. Again, you have issues to tackle too, that probably you don't have to read the entire code base for that as well. So you get these practices, you understand again, directory structuring practices, you understand better, variable naming and all these stuff which you hear while people tell about development. You can apply those knowledge when you actually contribute to open source, and when you actually contribute to such big organizations or such open source projects in general. So always remember, you can collaborate, you can learn, you will be able to apply them, and you'll be able to innovate. So open source is something which you should do after you have learned development. And so just at the end, I would like to say that open source is that bridge between development and the bridge between development and open source. So once you have done development, you just need to cross that bridge, contribute to open source, you increase your experience, and believe me, when you have those contributions on your resume, at the end of the day, our end goal is always to get a better job or a better job. So that will immensely help you when you have that open source contributions, participating in not just participating in programs. If someone sees that you're very active on GitHub, you have been contributing, people will reach out to you based on such profiles for jobs. Because remember, those who are contributing in open organization, like those who are the maintainers, it does happen a lot of times that those maintainers are also working for some big company, big startups, and they will probably refer you. And if they have already seen how you can code through your open source contributions, they won't hesitate to refer you, or they won't hesitate to even ask them to join your company. So always remember, try to contribute to open source, and whenever you have learned any development, any tech stack, search for what sort of open source contributions you can make, and try to do it. I guess it will be very beneficial for you. So overall, that is the gist of what I wanted to say. You can connect with me here, on my socials. And if you want the slides, you can scan through the QR code, or you can visit the website. You'll be able to get these slides. I think, I guess now, you can ask your questions. I would love to answer the questions that you all have. Just give me a second here. Yes, I'm up for questions. So anyone has questions, feel free to either speak it out.
If anybody has any questions, please, you can raise your hand or even put the questions in the chat box.
Yeah, sure. All right. So I'm just answering Jatin. So here is a good question. So, how do you find projects on GitHub? Now, the best way is if you're a beginner, right? If you're completely a beginner, but say you have made a few documentation changes here and there, and now you want to get into the coding part. Like I want to contribute to coding stuff. The best way is there are web scrapers. There are web scraping websites on the internet, like find issues and all that. Just make a Google search, you'll get a lot of such websites. There, try to manipulate your search. Try to filter out your search good first issues based on the language that you want, and then go and check. You will get the list of good first issues which have been recently opened. Go and check whether and then you can go and check that issue, and you can see whether that organization is actually an open source organization or it's some personal project. that and then you can contribute. So that is one way, good way of finding good open source projects on GitHub. The second is, you can go and try and find out archive websites. Let's say, for example, Google Summer of Code. You have the Google Summer of Code 2022, 2023 this year, then 21, and all these the old websites. Go and search out the various organizations that were taking part. When you go into their organization, you will see they have a lot. They usually have a lot of repositories on varied languages, and there there you can try to contribute there. So I think basically these searching out the organization will take part in programs and using web scrapers, you'll be able to get a good you'll be able to get good projects that you can contribute to. And again, you also have GitHub's filter, but what I have seen is GitHub usually filters it based on stars and something like that. And you at times what happens is the good first issues are actually not that good first issues. So I would suggest using the directly either getting involved with the organizations via these old programs or using web scraping websites that you have. The question also asks, what should be the least skill that you need to have get started? See, if you want to directly contribute to open source, you don't actually need any skill. If you have you can just search on internet, how do I contribute? You'll get these steps, steps by I mean, fork and all these stuff. And then if you and then you can easily contribute to documentation. Maybe you will see there are some errors, like let's say someone is missing a full stop or an exclamation mark. You can add that. But I would not say that is exactly open source contribution that you're looking for. Now, if you want to start, say, code contributions, you probably can get started after you have learned a language. If you're considering open source projects which are very languages which are good for open source, I would suggest, JavaScript is there, Python is there, you have Go, which is coming up, you have Java. So these are the few languages which it's easy to contribute to as a beginner. You will find a lot of projects in these languages, and you will find that the issues that they have are quite easy to tackle, and you don't have to go through a lot of stuff. And so I think that is the least skill that you would need. So just a bit of knowledge of programming language. Any programming language should be good enough if you want to get started with code contributions. And for non-code, I guess you can start any day. You don't actually need any skill for that. So Shivam was also asked, so recently I've won IWC and I've been creating a culture first step. Which I think because no events are underway in GSOC. Okay, yeah. So number one thing is, if you just keep looking for events, it won't be very helpful because during that time, when you make contribution just to event, people will know that you're just participating in events and not doing open source. Let's say with the essence of actual open source contribution, the collaboration part, as I was saying. So. What you can do here is, when you have participated in any program, you must have contributed to repositories, and those repositories will stay open source. Try to keep that contributing to them. That would sort of help you interact, help you understand. And apart from that, if you are finding for projects of your own tech stack, I know it may be a bit challenging to find. As I said, try to go for those web scrapers with your language. And try to get don't do something like that. You have to find multiple projects. If you want, you can stick to one open source project and keep contributing to that. That would also help. So I think that is the best way. And again, apart from that, always look out on socials like Twitter and LinkedIn. I guess Twitter is more for open source. You will find that usually you will get that for every month, some organization or the other is contributing their own event. Like I guess in February recently, Amplification was conducting their own contributor event. Then I think before that, Moment was conducting their own event that contribute to our project. So that is the best way to find events. And yes, I would say that, and keep sticking to the projects once you have contributed. That keeps the interaction going. How can I get an organization like Keploy? So yeah, so if you want to get, Keploy is an open source organization. So they basically look for community work, whatever role you want to get in. SDE or maybe even DevRel, and but I would also suggest so keep the community work up and try to since they are open source, try to contribute to their tech stack, because since them being open source, let's say you get an interview with them. When you are in the interview, you can obviously say that I've contributed to your projects, and they will immediately get an idea that they will immediately understand that you have an idea of how their project works. So in that case, that will automatically give you a head start. So I think that would be the best way. Try, if they're open source, the companies are open source. Try to go and contribute to their code repositories, and by contributing I mean do substantial contributions, because if you just simply work on documentation and stuff, people won't appreciate it. So try to do that. And as a result, I also suggest, I think Keploy is also now hiring for SD. So if you want, you can reach out to me. You can get. I would then forward your resume. Give you a referral there. So if you're interested, do reach out to me. Keploy is hiring for SD as well as SD intern. Do let me know. And we also have a DevRel the DevRel cohort coming up, guess by next month. So you can join that as well. To get an idea of how exactly DevRel looks. What is the best tech stack to get started? So Arjun has asked. So see, there is no exactly best tech stack, because there are like there are a lot of open source projects in every language. If you go ahead and see, if you go to package managers of any language, you will see there are a lot of open source packages for every, be it Go. Like recently, I've been learning Go. I saw the same thing for Go. For JavaScript, you have hundreds and thousands of packages. You have for Java as well. So there is no exactly proper good tech stack. But yeah, like one thing can be, as a beginner, I would suggest web development is probably very easy to get into open source, because most websites you can easily contribute to with HTML, CSS. And apart from, but again, there is no hard and fast rule like that. Java is very good, as a beginner. Like you have a lot of what I would say easy issues to tackle. Go is there as well. C++ I have seen are a bit difficult, because they're more sort of machine level, so you may find it a bit difficult. So yeah, and I would also suggest one thing: if you're starting out, you can look and try to solve test cases. You will see that a lot of major open source projects have issues where you have to contribute, like add tests to their test files. So that can be a very good way to, it won't even exactly matter what tech stack you are. Just try to go and see the pre-existing tests, and you can write your own. So that is anything. So like, to sum it up, I would say there is no exactly best tech stack. Whatever language you learn, you will obviously find projects related to that to contribute to open source. Then Khushi has asked, should I contribute to the most suitable organization that I can contribute to understand tech stack? But I want to learn this particularly. Yeah, I think the second one is that you don't have to limit yourself to your tech stack. As I said, you can contribute to. You don't have to understand the full tech stack, because you don't actually have to understand the code. Let's say you want to contribute to any big framework. Let's say I'll say React. Now, if you go out there, you will see React. I don't know. I guess has millions lines of code. Now, it's not possible for me to read through millions of lines. I'll just try to tackle the issue that is there. For that, you probably will need to, you need to go through at least 50, I guess at max 15 to 20 lines of code. For that, you don't have to understand the entire tech stack. I have also contributed to repositories. I have contributed to programs that projects that were using Ruby and I guess R as well. I don't have any idea about how they work. I saw the issue. I saw it can be tackled. Like I understood what it was missing, and I just did that, and it worked. So so I think that would be the best. Even in Keploy, we are basically we are more towards Go, but I have been contributing to Go now as well. So that is the best way. Like I would say, is you don't have to understand the full tech stack of any organization or any project. Just try to get a gist of what they want and what the error is, and try to resolve it, and that will be good. And again, obviously, if you know your tech stack and you get a good organization, good project to contribute to, you can do that. But like, don't limit yourself to either one of them. And then Suraj has asked, what are the opportunities after a company is something unknown? Okay, yeah. If you see Google Summer of Code, both of them are sort of like mentorship programs. Now, I would say is you don't exactly have there is no strict defined path after GSOC. Number one thing is if you do GSOC or MLH, it does have an opportunity to get hired by the company that you're working. As I have heard, I have talked with a few people who have a MLH fellowship. So they were saying they're different into pods, and then they try to usually recruit from the pods, like the students who have contributed to their project during MLH fellowship. So that is one thing for MLH fellowship. But again, those are mentorship programs. After similarly for GSOC, you have people you contribute to any organization and you get that certification. Now GSOC and MLH both will obviously add an immense amount of, let's say, gravity or weight to your resume. And apart from that, after you have completed these programs, if you have contributed well, probably the organizations can ask you to join them. That always stays there. And yeah, I guess there is no you can again contribute. I think GSOC you can contribute again next year, but you can again try to stick with those organizations and try to be maintainers in them. And at the end of the day, these things on your resume will obviously add that weight, and you can get better opportunities in terms of jobs, which I guess every one of us at the end of the day is doing all these for jobs. So I think after GSOC or MLH, I think those are just like normal programs. It's almost like if you're in competitive programming, it's like, what after ICPC. So after they do it, it just adds to the resume. Similar, you can correlate that as GSOC and MLH. The only thing is these are more mentorship programs. You will get to learn a lot from the mentors, and you'll get to interact with them. So that helps you a lot. So I think that is very important. So there's no, as I said, no strict path after these. But yeah, you can obviously leverage what you have done and look for better opportunities. Thank you, all right. I think there's no more questions.
We are nearing the time limit for the webinar. If anybody has any more questions. I think that will be all. Thank you, Diganta, for sharing your insights and experiences on open source development. We hope that our audience has gained a better understanding of the latest trends and opportunities in open source development and the resources and tools to get started. We encourage everyone to get involved and to join the open source community. And thank you all for joining us today. And we
just
hope
one
to see
thing,
you
sorry, Himanshu, just one thing I want to say. Whenever in open source, don't use the word sir. People don't like sir at all. Sir, ma'am. Obviously, you can refer to by their first name. I think that is good. So yeah, don't need to ask. Just connect with. And if you want, you can connect with me. Don't just use sir and everything. I'm good with my first name. I guess that would do it.
Yeah, I think that is a very good advice. People have been only looking for technical ones, but I think this is as much as important as the technical ones, right?
Yeah, that is it. That is very important. So if you go and people get offended if you use sir at times in open source organizations. So yeah, remember that. Yes. Go by the first name, and that is good enough.
So I think we will be concluding the session. Thank you, Diganta, once again. Thank you for giving us a bit of your time.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for the lovely audience. You have been really very active asking these questions. So I do get you have understood what I was saying, and hope everyone here gets that bit of kick to again keep contributing to open source, work on your development projects, and I think that will be it. You will do, if you follow these steps, you probably will get at the end of the day whatever you want, whatever you aspire for, you'll get it.
Yes, I think everybody is a lot more motivated to contribute to open source right now because of this session. So thank you all. Thank you, Diganta, once again. And please, to the audience, thank you all for joining us today. And we hope to see you in our future events.